friendly as can be. Hi, I'm your neighborhood atheist. I don't have any horns, if you care to inspect me. But don't expect me to think just like you. I know wrong from right, and my life has meaning. Don't worry, I won't bite. I'm as nice as you. All of us are made of the stuff of the stars. Atheists are human beings, we didn't come from Mars. Atheists are people too. You must have been a bad little boy to grow up to not believe in God. Why are you so angry and so bitter, so abrasive? You just don't want to have any moral constraints on your life. You just want to sin. You're the blame for all the evils in the whole wide world.
Good morning, Austin, and welcome to the Atheist Experience. We're coming to you live August 23rd. That is our telephone number. We'll be taking your phone calls here shortly, live on the air. But I always like to start off the show with a few announcements here for ACA. We meet every Sunday at the Hot Jumble Bakery, which is on West 5th and Lavaca. And once we get done here with the show, we head down there, and it's just a general socialized meeting there for fellow atheists and free thinkers there, and just a chance to get together and drink some coffee and talk current events. We have our quarterly blood drive is going on. What's the exact date?
October 17.
Thank you. We like to have a fun there for all the atheists here in Austin. You don't have to be a member of the group, and if any atheists out there ran into any medical problems or whatever, we'd love to help you out. Just give us a call there. We're also getting our group together here to go to Comfort, Texas here in October for the dedication to the monument there, and that's October 4th. We'll be taking a bus up, and anybody wants to join us, call us on that. That's 371-2911 is our voicemail. And you don't, again, if you want, that'd be a great way to introduce yourself to the group. Come and join us here on this. I'm trying to think if there's any other announcements for the group. You think?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Right off the bat. The party was great, though, wasn't it?
Yes. Thank you. Yes, my party last night. And the rain sort of thinned things out a bit, but we did have a great time last night. I appreciate it. Band Red House was killer. Hopefully you'll be hearing more of them.
Great.
I would like to point out that John Coons was listed as our special guest there on the introduction there. He will be on next week, and he's a science teacher, and we'll be discussing evolution. We had a lot of calls on evolution, and we really want to do some more on that, so I just want to let the folks, our audience out there, know that next week, John Coons, and the topic will be evolution. So if you got any stumpers, this will be the gentleman to call, and he likes hearing new questions all the time there. But our actual guest here is David Kent. And we usually go over some news articles, and I have a news article here that deals with a gentleman here in town, I'll find his name, Roy Torres. Started his own church here, right here in Austin, the Church of the Body of Christ. And the whole point is behind this is we're going to have a lot of people claiming to be prophets here, especially with the millennium coming up. There's just going to be tons of false prophets out there. And this gentleman here took advantage of these people. They're saying it's a small church, only 10 or 12 people, but these people were giving him their paychecks. One guy was giving him $1,300 a month. So that this guy was in prison once before, came out, and but anyway, he took advantage of his position as a minister there, and he was actually convicted of molesting some of the children in the group and everything else. And this leads us up to today's topic, which has to do with Mormons and Joseph Smith and how he started his own religion. And and that goes all the way back in the 1800s, but I just want to show you it's happening today too. Now, David Kemp, you were actually born and raised a Mormon.
I sure was.
And so we'll let you go have the floor there.
Okay, we're not just picking on religions here. This is something that I do have some good background in. I was baptized a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in 1949, and I was raised in the Mormon Church and a thoroughgoing Mormon. I graduated 1966 from Brigham Young University with honors, and I actually held the highest grade of the Mormon priesthood, the Melchizedek priesthood, an elder in that priesthood. My wife-to-be and I were the third couple married in the Mormon temple, the Washington Temple of the Church in 1974. That's in Kensington, Maryland. And up until the late 70s, we were zealous Mormons. So I do know a whole lot about the history of the Mormon Church and the actual practice of the Mormon Church. So I thought I should get on here and maybe make a presentation to you. If there are any calls later on, I could answer those calls. People are always curious about the magic Mormon bulletproof underwear and things like that we could joke about, but I want to give a serious presentation about just exactly what the history of this church is, because a lot of people don't know. When you see these, the two boys in white shirts and ties come knocking on your doorway, on your door, and they're very friendly to you, just exactly what are you looking at and what do they represent? And to get into this, what I'd like to do is to examine the history of Joseph Smith, Jr., who was the founder of the Mormon Church back in 1830, and then discuss basically what the church itself is as an organization today. Is it a religion? Is it a cult? It's trying right now to change its public image and to eliminate a part of its history, but what exactly goes on inside the Mormon Church? I know my wife, who is a convert to the church, said, well, how can people who seem to be so friendly and so intelligent believe some of the crazy stuff that I hear that they believe? Which is, I'm sure, is a common question. She joined the church and she found out they really do believe the crazy stuff, and she left it. And so what I want to do is go into the background of Joseph Smith. I don't think this will be too boring. He was, but it is kind of necessary to find out what kind of person put this thing together. I should mention first that Joseph Smith Jr., by the time he was killed in 1844, was sporting several titles. He asked to be called elder, lieutenant general of the troops under his command. He was declared a mayor. He was declared the supreme justice. He was declared the president. He was voted by a group of his called the Council of 50 to be God. That's the only person I know of who was voted into godhood before he was killed. Joseph Smith was born in 1805, and as a child, first thing he did was a little bit of basket weaving when he was a young boy. And then he had a job for a short time peddling beer, selling beer door to door.
Okay.
Which is a little ironic considering that later on the Mormon churches.
I had no idea.
Cool.
His first full-time job was peddling beer door to door. And this is accepted by LDS historians. This is not just hearsay. When he got old enough to do the kind of hard labor that his family, the rest of his family, were doing and were expected to do. They were in an agricultural community. He found a way out of that. He discovered that a popular belief in the area he grew up in, New England, New York, and Vermont, was to search for buried treasure. There were a lot of rumors going around his neighborhood at the time that the Spanish and various pirates had come in and buried treasure, and that if you found the treasure, of course, you'd never have to work again. And so he got together with a bunch of friends of his and went to his neighbors and claimed to be able, by various means, to discover treasure buried in the earth, and then he and his friends volunteered to dig for the treasure, and he did this for pay. And he had various devices to do this. He went around and he found what he said were seer stones, little stones that he would look in, and they would disclose to him where the treasure was located. And if they found somebody gullible enough to believe this, then they would hire him, Smith and his friends, to dig for this treasure. And when Smith was unable to find the treasure in the place where he thought or claimed it was buried, his excuse was that the demons who guarded the treasure pulled it down further into the earth. So, you know, it's something that he could never be called on. Very clever little idea to keep him from actually going out and doing any serious work. Made quite a bit of money that way. This went on for a while, and then one of the farmers he came across charged him with fraud, and he was arrested, and he was convicted of being a disorderly person and an imposter. That was the charge he was convicted of. Mormonism's foremost apologist and premier historian, Hugh Nibley, claimed in 1961 that this trial was mythical and a product of wishful thinking. He said this was aired by the Episcopal Bishop of Salt Lake City, Utah, and therefore should be suspect, and said that if this court record is authentic, it is the most damning evidence in existence against Joseph Smith. It was almost exactly 10 years later, in 1971, that a man named Wesley P. Walters went to New York and did some research, and in the basement of the sheriff's office in Shenango County, he found the record showing that Smith was tried and was convicted of fraud before Justice Albert Neely on the 20th of March, 1826. So that should have been the end of it, and except that Smith made a bad step here. He was renting a room from a man named Isaac Hale, and this Isaac Hale had a daughter named Emma, and Smith talked the daughter into eloping with him and escaping from this whole bad scene. The father pursued him and accosted him in August of 1827, and at that time Smith admitted, and this is a quote, "He could not see in a stone now, nor never could, and that his former pretensions in that respect were all false." End quotes. And so he admitted to his father-in-law that it was all bogus. At that time, Isaac Hale, well, here he has, this is a father with a daughter, and what's he going to do with his the son-in-law? He told Smith that he would give him enough capital to start his own business or to help him set up house if he would engage in honest work, and Smith thought this was a great idea, and he took the money from Isaac Hale and went into hiding, and 2 years later he came out with what he called the Book of Mormon. It took 2 years to write the thing. Hale finally decided in 1834, this is Isaac Hale, his Smith's father-in-law, he said, "The whole Book of Mormon, so-called, is a silly fabrication got up for the speculation and with the design to dupe the credulous and unwary." Now, so much for the start of Joseph Smith. The background of this, where did he get the idea for the Book of Mormon, and how did he get it together? He didn't have any formal education, and the Book of Mormon includes a whole lot of straight copywork from the Old Testament. But where did he get the idea of producing such a book? The answer to that is from another book that was published in 1823 by a man named Ethan Smith called View of the Hebrews. And View of the Hebrews called for such a work as the Book of Mormon. The point of the idea of Ethan Smith was to prove that the American Indians were a remnant of the lost 10 tribes of Israel. And he said, someday somebody is going to come up with the proof to bolster my speculation. Well, he put out the View of the Hebrews in 1823. In that book, Ethan Smith claimed that ancient American Indians had worked in iron and copper, silver, swordsmithing. Following suit, Joseph Smith in 1830 in his Book of Mormon, he claimed that ancient American Indians worked in iron, in copper, in silver, and swordsmith. He copied it almost word for word. There are dozens of parallels between View of the Hebrews and the Book of Mormon, which came 7 years later, including word for word lifting out of Ethan Smith's work. Ethan Smith had published this book less than 30 miles away from where Joseph Smith lived. Joseph Smith's principal scribe, when he translated the Book of Mormon, so-called, was Oliver Cowdery, who was in the congregation of Ethan Smith. That connection is very obvious and very close. There's no question about the thing. Smith claimed later on that God Almighty had come down and appeared to him in 1827 and told him that there were gold plates inscribed by what was left of the 10 tribes in America. And he arranged with Oliver Cowdery, his wife, Martin Harris, a couple of other scribes, to help him in this, the translation of these plates. And the setup was that Smith would sit on one side of a room with a curtain between him and the person who was writing down what he dictated. And he claimed to be looking into a top hat with one of his little stones in the bottom. He said the stone would become bright and he could read off the English translation of what was written on these gold plates. And across the curtain, the other guy, the scribe, would copy down what he said. Then after he was finished, he got a number of people to act as witnesses and to sign an affidavit that they saw the angel, that they saw the golden plates and so on. And this is a very impressive thing. If you pick up a copy of the Book of Mormon, the first thing you'll see in it is the testimony of the 3 witnesses, and several additional witnesses, but the 3 primary ones who claim to see an angel and handle these gold plates. There are a couple of websites. If you go into Mormonism, you'll find every one of these witnesses has been examined in his subsequent life. They all, I think except one, Joseph Smith left the Mormon Church. The most interesting of these 3 witnesses, who are the principal ones because they claim to see the angels, is Martin Harris, who mortgaged his farm to finance the publication of the Book of Mormon. Martin Harris later joined the spiritualists, and he gave an affidavit that my testimony of the Book of the Spiritualists is 10 times stronger than my testimony of the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon ever was. So much for his testimony of the Book of Mormon, and these other people as well. Another person later on in life admitted that he had not seen the actual gold plates he said he had. He said they were covered up with a cloth, and he just saw a large thing covered with cloth and was told that these were the plates. Well, that's how much reliance you can give to that.
Well, let me remind the people here, if you don't
Right.
We are live August 23rd. We're talking Mormonism and the history of Mormonism and Joseph Smith in general. We will be taking calls live on the air here. That's the number there. And I just want to remind the folks who we are and what we're doing here. And you're doing a great job there, David. Go ahead.
Let's just well, let's follow out the Book of Mormon. Presumably, God Almighty appeared to Joseph Smith and spoke to him in perfect Elizabethan English, kind of English that the Old Testament used in the King James Version and was current 200 years before Smith's time. A little embarrassing. There are some things about the Book of Mormon to any person who is not brought up in the church that should be completely, transparently phony about it. In one section of the Book of Mormon, Jesus Christ, at the time he was born in the Near East, supposedly appeared to the inhabitants who were living in the Americas to announce his birth there. And the way that Joseph Smith put it in the Book of Mormon, he says, let me see if I can get the exact quotation here in the Book of Mormon. Where's it going here? Yeah, the Book of Mormon, 3rd Nephi, chapter 1, verse 13 says, "On the morrow," that is tomorrow, "come I into the world." Well, I don't know, that would be the first fetus in the history of mankind who's making comments exactly one day before it was born. This is a fetus talking. This is Jesus Christ, one day before he's born, appearing in North America, announcing that he's going to be born tomorrow. Well, if people will believe that, they will believe anything. That should mark this whole thing as a fairy tale right there.
Aren't they trying to actually distance themselves from Joseph Smith?
A couple of years ago, the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who's headquartered in Independence, Missouri, they had split at the time of Smith's death. Brigham Young took one group out to Utah. This other group, who did not subscribe to polygamy and claimed that Joseph Smith never had more than one wife, stayed in Independence, Missouri. And they had a system of succession where it had to be a blood descendant, father, son, father, son, father, son down. Well, they ran out of people about 30 years ago, and they elected as prophet, seer, and revelator of that church in Missouri a man who had been to theological seminary but was not related to these Smiths. And this man made a public announcement here a couple of years ago in which he said, I do not accept that the Book of Mormon is an historical record. He said it had some good moral teachings in it, but we cannot accept this as an historical record. Well, the church in Utah absolutely claims it's an historical record, and they're doing everything they can to prove it's a real historical work, which is what Joseph Smith claimed it was. He did not say he was putting out some little moral guide. He said he was this is a revelation by God, by way of the golden plates, by way of these angels, of the history of the American Indians. For years and years, the Mormon Church has been, well, it formed this foundation, and it has poured millions and millions of dollars into trying to prove the archaeology, well, through archaeology, through the fauna and flora, every other study of North, Central, and South America, trying to show that the Book of Mormon is an historical record. And the difficulty with that is that they have not, they failed. There is absolutely no evidence that it was a real historical record. They've studied its geography, its fauna, its archaeology, its agriculture, and they've completely failed to demonstrate there's any historical reality to their primary record. The Mormon Church has a history of buying up any historical artifact or journal or anything else that would tend to cast doubt on the official version of the church. Joseph Smith kind of tripped himself up because he gave 4 different versions of the appearance of God Almighty to him, and they contradict each other. So that's bad enough, but there are other journals that have come to light that have tried to, that have been contradictory to various versions of the official history, and the Mormon Church has had a habit of buying this kind of material up and suppressing it so that the truth cannot come out. The difficulty is that a lot of this stuff got published years ago, and the Mormon Church cannot cover it up. Joseph Smith told one of his faithful followers this, for example. It was published in 1892, and the Mormon Church cannot buy it, destroy it, or cover it up. This is a quote from Joseph Smith. The inhabitants of the moon are more of a uniform size than the inhabitants of the earth, being about 6 feet in height. They dress very like the Quaker style. They dress like Quakers on the moon. They live to be very old, coming generally near 1,000 years. And that's a quotation from Joseph Smith, who in 1842 probably thought he was absolutely safe. Who could ever travel up to the moon and look at the moon and see whether these people lived up there? It was a safe prophecy. Joseph Smith also prophesied that the second coming of Jesus Christ would occur when he turned 85 years old. That is in 1890. I guess we all missed it. He was, by anybody's account, a false prophet. The Mormon Church is actually continuing that thing today. They just put out a book, brand new book, called Teachings of the Prophets. In the 2nd volume on Brigham Young, they give a little biographical information and claim that Brigham Young was born, was married first to a woman who lived a few years, then died. Then he married another woman, and he had a total of 6 children. Well, I don't know what in the world the Mormon Church thinks it's doing. Are people going to forget he was married to 55 women? This is all public record. He had 56 children by those 55 wives.
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Now they're trying to go back and rewrite history and claim that Joseph Smith had many wives because this is necessary to distinguish them from the Missouri group.
Exactly.
But now they're trying to claim that Brigham Young only had 2 legitimate wives, which is baloney. There is a brand new book that's just come out documenting that Joseph Smith had 33 wives. Everybody has heard the story that Joseph Smith, besides Emma Hale, had a number of single women sealed to him, and they were his wives, and this was all a very chaste affair. Now it comes out that it was anything but that. Many of these wives that he had, according to this new book by, I think it's Christopher Todd is his name, were the wives of other men to whom they were married. Joseph Smith was practicing polyandry, otherwise known as adultery.
The correlation between him and David Koresh, because David Koresh was married.
No doubt if Koresh had not come to a sticky end there, he would have ended up in the same.
Not to interrupt you, but we do have a caller here.
Let me finish this
sure,
up.
Okay,
and then
we'll get to the caller here in just a minute.
If you or she will hold on the line for a few minutes, we'll have it.
Go right ahead.
Joseph Smith went out and proposed that other women marry him. The notorious case is Orson Hyde, whom Joseph Smith sent on a mission to proselytize for the church. While Hyde was gone, Joseph Smith approached his wife and talked her into marrying him. He committed adultery wholesale. I don't want to draw any parallels between him and Mr. Clinton, but it was like every available woman seemed to be the story. But the Mormon Church is kind of in a historical jam unless they can just wipe out history altogether in that regard. Joseph Smith said by the time he had, this is shortly before he died in 1843, he said, "I am above the world, for I have no laws." Now this is a dangerous thing for anyone to think. He said that he had seen God Almighty at sundry times and in diverse places. He claimed also to have seen Jesus Christ, Michael the Archangel, Raphael, Gabriel, Moses, Elijah, John the Baptist, Peter, James, John, Elias, Moroni out of the Book of Mormon, and other diverse angels from Adam down to the present. He, in that same speech, claimed that his faithful followers would become gods themselves and would be empowered, authorized, and able to continue copulating with women after they died for billions and billions of years. This is one of the core beliefs in the Mormon Church, and they've never abandoned it. They believe it right now. What I would like to do, let's just wipe out Joseph Smith here. In 1844, he got into politics in a big way. He promised the Mormon vote to the Whig Party and the Democrat Party, the two parties of the time, and then he double-crossed one for the other. In 1844, he ordered that the press and the type of a newspaper that was putting around rumors about his extramarital affairs be destroyed. On the basis of that, he was thrown into jail. When he was in jail, he had a shootout with his guards. He shot at them, they shot at him. That was the end of him. Well, a lot of what you don't realize about the Mormon Church, they're trying to mainstream themselves and portray themselves as something like the Baptist or Methodist. They're trying to maintain that they're basically nothing more than another version of Protestant Christianity. They claim to believe the Bible, but if you ever catch them on some biblical phrase that is awkward for them, they will claim, well, we believe it as far as it is translated correctly. They basically believe the Book of Mormon. That was literally true as far in their line of belief. They are actually, essentially, though, in my opinion, a cult. And for this reason, every Mormon who joins the church and is willing to pay 20 or 25% of his income, between the 10% tithing and all the other funds he's supposed to donate to, is expected to go to the temple to receive ceremonies and rituals there, and these are very bizarre rituals. This is anything but Christian. Joseph Smith was a master mason early in his career, and he stole wholesale from the masons. There are rites and ceremonies that you are expected excuse me, to take in the Mormon Church. And one of these is called the endowment, and this is it has signs and tokens in the usual Masonic ceremony. If you're a Mason, you know what I'm talking about. At the end of this ritual, you are handed a vestment or a garment which you are expected to wear for the rest of your life, or replace it, made out of rayon, dacron, material like that. And this garment has sewn into its standard Masonic emblems, such as the sign of the compass and sign of the square. During the course of your receiving this endowment and going through this ritual, you are made to promise that you are willing to have your throat cut ear to ear, that you're willing to be disemboweled, that you're willing to be emasculated if you ever reveal anything about this endowment. Fortunately, somebody's had the courage to go on the internet, because on 2 different internet sites that I looked at, the entire ceremony, word for word, has been transcribed. It's up on the internet for anybody to read.
I didn't know that.
Who wants to look at it. They've tried to tone this down a little bit. The Mormon Church in recent years got a lot of flack from women who say, I can't go bathing, I can't do anything public because I have to wear this stupid thing that comes down to my knees. And so they've made some alterations in it, some exceptions. And the ritual itself, the endowment ceremony, has changed over the years since Joseph Smith began it. shortly after Joseph Smith died, a part of the endowment as administered by Brigham Young was you solemnly swear that you will avenge the murderers of Joseph Smith. These people took a vow that they would search out and murder the men who were in the sheriff's posse who were guarding Smith and who killed him, and kill them. This is a blood oath after a certain number of years, of course, when all these people were, would have died by natural means. They dropped that part of the oath. It is still necessary when you go through the endowment in any of the Mormon temples to swear that you will devote your entire time, your entire income, all of the assets, all of your property to the Mormon Church, specifically the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They require everything that you have. They threaten you with death if you reveal anything about the cult ceremony, the ceremony of the endowment, which is administered in every one of the church's temples worldwide. I think there are 30 some odd of these things now. This is not a church. This is not Christian. This is cultism at its worst under the guise of Christianity. No one, when these guys approach you on the street and they're asking you, they're presenting their little thing about true prophets versus the false prophets, and they want you to pray about it and get a testimony of the truthfulness of the gospel, that as they portray it, they're asking you to brainwash yourself into
You're all right, go.
well, okay, into a condition where you're willing to accept this stuff, not look at it critically. I suppose I could go on into a rant. I'm trying very hard.
No, that's quite all right.
I'm trying very hard not to go into a rant because I was subjected to this thing for, 30 some odd years, and
that's why I want to let the people know that you were born and raised in it. So yes, you have, and
I know,
you researched it quite well. I've seen all the footnotes and everything else.
I'd like to say something to anybody. I think I can do this. This little article that I'm quoting from here is something I wrote a year or so ago called Mormon Schmormon. And I would like to say that if anybody would like to call us up at the website,
sure,
contact the Atheist Community of Austin.
We'll send that along to you.
This is thoroughly documented. If anybody has any doubt about any part of what I've been telling you, it's thoroughly documented. Or you can go onto the internet yourself and check these various sites for people who have for people who have joined the Mormon Church and then become disenchanted and left it because what they found it really represents. There are several good sites on the internet.
All right.
Do you want to go to a caller? Or?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have a caller on the line. June.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hi.
Yes.
Getting monitor.
Thanks. I'm glad I got.
Can we get some more monitor?
I just barely hear you.
Okay. Listen, I really like your show.
Thank you.
I'm really interested in all the things you're talking about, but my main interest is in hearing about your atheism. As a new atheist, about maybe like 2 years, I'm interested in hearing your experiences as atheists and how you became atheist. Like David, I know he was a Mormon, and what changed his mind? What was the process?
All right.
Okay, that's.
And she asked you, David.
Fair,
go right ahead.
Fair question. Well, it wasn't one event that did it.
I'm going to hang up and listen to your answer.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, June.
Thank you.
Yeah, it wasn't one event. It was basically I was just reading very widely. My major was in history, and I think what began to make me question the truthfulness of the Mormon Church was reading about other religions.
All right.
And I discovered that other religions had similar histories, that religions, the claim of any one religion to be the absolute truth, which Mormonism does, I didn't think could not possibly be true. There were too many good people in other religions. That's the first thought that occurred to me.
Or any of them that say divine inspiration, they can all be traced back to a man-made document there or whatever. And,
well,
I can't believe that any divine inspiration for any instrument out there.
Well, if you're so far into any one religion as I was into Mormonism, I think you'll discover that the there is a truth behind the religion which is not what your group or your cult likes to present. The same thing I understand is true about the Church of Scientology and any major church. If you go back to the life of the founder of the church,
Right.
even as far back as Buddha, you'll discover Buddha was an atheist, but it didn't take long for them to make a religion out of it.
Well, let's try another caller real quick.
Okay.
Good morning, Gary.
Whoops.
Oh, he's called before.
We went through all that just to get that silly. Okay. We're
Well-
August 23rd. We are live. That is the telephone number. We do have a voicemail. All right, it's 371-2911. Anybody would like to know more about the group or would like to get a copy of this article here from David Kent there, and you can see all the footnotes and the
Well-
research and everything else that went into this article.
There is one more important,
Sure.
important aspect of this I would like to mention, and that is that Mormonism is not content to rest as a mainstream religion. Its intentions are a little more sinister. Ezra Taft Benson, I don't know if anybody who's watching the show is old enough to realize that Ezra Taft Benson was Eisenhower's Secretary of Agriculture. He was also one of the 12 apostles of the Mormon Church. He eventually became president of the church. He made this statement. This is Ezra Taft Benson, who was, before he became a president of the church, but at the time he was an apostle. He said, "The president of the church is God's prophet, and his word is law on all issues, including political issues."
That's scary.
That church intends to control this country politically and religiously. And that goes a little further. There was a quote by Bruce R. McConkie, who got into a great deal of trouble when he wrote a book defending the Mormon Church, because in his book he gave a cross-reference under the Whore of Babylon to see the Roman Catholic Church. Caught a lot of flack for that. But this is a quote from Bruce R. McConkie's book, it, referring to the Mormon Church, "It will grow and nothing can stop it until it is both an ecclesiastical and political kingdom, and it will govern in all things, both political and spiritual." If anybody doubts that, the Mormon Church wants political power in the worst way. That's out of the Salt Lake Tribune, 13th of October, 1958. And then the church announced officially, 26th of May, 1945, in its own newspaper, the Deseret News, "When our leaders speak, the thinking has been done." You are not to think. You're to take exactly what the prophet of the church tells you is a correct position.
And the Mormons aren't the only one telling the
No.
followers that.
No,
That's a common trait among the religions.
That is true. Interesting point here about how truthful they are as far as their history is concerned. Brigham Young said a number of times in what is called the Journal of Discourses, which is kind of the record of his speeches during his presidency of the church, he denied that any of the suits that were ever brought against Joseph Smith were he denied that Joseph Smith was ever convicted. Repeatedly said that, and he knew personally otherwise, and it has taken some researchers to dig this up in the Geauga County, Ohio court minutes. I think there are, well, let's see, 4 suits in which he was convicted. 6 suits were settled out of court, and there were others in which Smith was assessed damages for defrauding his own followers in Kirtland, Illinois. So
That's amazing.
They have a record of anything but truth. They are not reliable people.
Let's try another caller here. Chris?
Yes.
Good morning.
Hi. First of all, I really enjoy your program.
Thank you.
To me, it's more like what I would like to see in a church.
Okay.
Free exchange of ideas.
I'm not trying to replace Mormonism.
My call kind of gets away a little bit from the subject of today, but
All right.
there's 2
That's
points
fine.
I wanted to bring up.
Sure.
There's a new book out by Stanislav Grof called The Cosmic Game, and he's bringing up 2 points about the rejection of religion by science. And if you don't mind, it's pretty quick here, but
That's
the
right.
first one, he writes that the main obstacle in the study of spiritual experiences is the fact that Western science oftentimes makes no distinction between primitive folk beliefs or fundamentalist interpretations of scriptures on the one hand, and the sophisticated mystical traditions and some of the Eastern spiritual philosophies on the other. He writes that Western science has indiscriminately rejected any spiritual concepts and activities, including those based on centuries of systematic exploration of the psyche. Many mystical traditions that combined observation and theoretical speculation in a way that resembled modern science. The second point is that when scientism and fundamentalism collide, neither side seems to realize that many of the passages in spiritual scriptures around which the controversy revolves should not be understood as references to concrete personages, geographical places, and historical events, but as accounts of transpersonal experiences. The scientific descriptions of the universe and the stories in religious texts do not relate to the same realities, and they do not compete for the same terrain. I'll close it by saying, as Joseph Campbell, the mythologist, pointed out in his special way, the Immaculate Conception is not a problem for gynecologists, and the Promised Land is not a piece of real estate.
There you go.
Well, you know, it's too bad that people didn't realize that a few hundred years ago you would have saved millions and millions of lives that were destroyed by religious organizations.
Right. For me, you know, what I, of course, I don't consider myself an atheist. I've gone to some atheist groups, but what I often found was that if you mentioned spirituality in any context whatsoever, people that call themselves atheists often recoil and don't want to hear anything that you refer to as spiritual.
Well,
I just want to say that there's a Ken Wilber, the great psychologist. I'm not. You might be familiar with some of his work. Said that whenever religion or spirituality and science have a conflict, what you have is either bogus religion or bogus spirituality or bogus science or both. That true spirituality and science can't be in conflict with each other. And of course, a lot of the theoretical physicists of the 20th century considered themselves mystics.
Well, Joseph Campbell himself remained a Roman Catholic to the day he died. He was unable to deal with the Roman Catholicism he was born into, and he immersed himself in mythology and produced a great deal of valuable work. But he was trying to create a system that he personally could believe in. He was trying to find something in the universe that was true outside the framework he was being restricted by. And spirituality, what does it come down to? If you look at the word spirit, it comes from the Latin root, which means to breathe. Spirituality, if it doesn't refer to the supernatural, is something that, well, let's say the spirituality is now that religion itself is becoming discredited, a lot of people claim to be spiritual in its place because spirituality is an acceptable term. There are new religions that claim to be atheistic religions and who claim to be spiritual. One of these is Raelianism, in which this Frenchman in the mid-1970s claims to have the inside story on a lot of Jewish and historically questionable points in various world religions. It seems to be an amalgam of Blavatsky's Theosophy and Scientology and the Baha'i belief, an eclectic sort of system that they claim to be atheistic. They claim to endorse every prophet who's ever lived. They claim to endorse Joseph Smith, which puts me right off of them.
Yes.
And the man, in order to get his ideas out, had to claim some kind of headline stunt. And so what he did was claim that a UFO came down out of the sky and little gray men, or whoever it was, told him all of these secrets in order for anybody to pay any attention to his teaching. But he's trying to launch a new religion which will satisfy everybody and make spirituality acceptable. I happen to believe in the scientific method is the most reliable way of discovering what the real world is like, and it is not a narrow-minded approach. It is a fine focus that does eliminate what generally is called fantasy or spirituality or religion.
Okay. I do appreciate your call there.
Thank you.
You have a good day.
Thank you.
we got like about 15 minutes left, and we got a bunch of callers online here, so we're going to try to go through them as quick as we can here without being rude. Let's go on down to John.
Hey, Ray, how's it going? This is John, your newsletter editor.
Oh, John Coons.
Yes,
Can we have more monitor?
yes.
Can we have some more monitor?
We can just barely hear you. We did tell everyone you're going to be on the show next week.
Yeah, it's good. I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
Yeah, the last caller was talking about science and religion, and I just thought I ought to call in and
Fantastic. Glad to hear from you.
sense, in my opinion, it's a slippery slope. Once you start talking about spirituality and religion and things like that, it's really easy to lose focus of being scientific. I'm thinking of particularly of, I don't know if you saw on the email thing the other night, somebody posted an interesting site about people called pantheists. Did you have
I hadn't heard anything about them,
Well,
yeah.
basically, they're atheists, but they use words like divine and sacred to talk about their awe for the universe.
The natural world is divine?
Right, right, exactly. I think that's exactly what they said. Anyway, I thought it was very interesting, except, you know, my problem with that kind of thing and a lot of the stuff that's in the news now about people trying to combine science and religion is just that. It's a slippery slope. You start talking about things being sacred. Well, once something's sacred, then doesn't there have to be something that's sacrilegious? And what's that going to be? And then you start getting to us versus them. You start
Right,
using the
and-
scientific method, and you start going the same way that all religions go, which is into, you know, abusing people. In the end.
Yeah, we can just barely hear you.
Okay, I'm speaking up. I guess we have a bad connection here.
There, that's helping a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you. But you brought up a very good point there. If you try to put any scientific definition to what they call their spiritual experience, once you try to put the scientific definition to it, then you start wiping out the spiritual part of it.
Well, I'll get off the air here so you know.
Well, we're looking forward to being on the show next week, John.
All right, take it easy.
You take care. That was excellent. Okay, let's go on down to Mary.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Mary.
Well,
Oh, she's loud and clear.
hello.
Hello.
You're coming through loud and clear is what we said.
Okay, good, because I wanted to read a paragraph this morning from, I'm reading Post-Scarcity Anarchism by Murray Bookchin.
Okay, quickly, we're...
Okay, it says, in attempting to uphold scarcity, toil, poverty, and subjugation against the growing potential for post-scarcity, leisure, abundance, and freedom, capitalism increasingly emerges as the most irrational, indeed, the most artificial society in history. The society now takes on the appearance of a totally alien as well as alienating force.
Right.
It emerges as the other, in quotation marks, so to speak, of humanity's deepest desires and impulses. And one more sentence, okay?
All right.
On an ever greater scale, potentiality begins to determine and shape one's everyday view of actuality until a point is reached where everything about the society, including its most attractive amenities, seems totally insane, the result of a massive social lunacy. Okay? That's exactly where I am, because when I think about it, all my life has been lived under the nuclear age.
Right.
Okay? And I don't have any other way of looking at life except as this us and them, the otherizing thing I call it. And it's not fair because I had a lot of potential, positive potential as a human being. I've got great ideas.
Right.
And I don't have any way to express them because I'm always having to react to this us and them game. And it's really, really getting tiresome for a creative mind, okay? And that's it.
Well, I appreciate your input.
Thank you.
We love hearing from you. You take care. How about lightening things up here, Joe, with a joke here?
Oh, okay.
No, too grim for too long here.
This is out of American Atheist July newsletter, July 1998. Very good. Okay.
That's a good one. I like it.
A man walks into a woman's section of a department store and tells the sales clerk he wants to buy a bra for his wife. What type of bra? Asks the clerk. Type, inquires the man. There's more than one type. There are 3 types, replies the clerk. The Catholic type, the Salvation Army type, and the Baptist type. Which one will you need? Still confused, the man asks, what's the difference? The clerk responds, it's really very easy. The Catholic type supports the masses. The Salvation Army type lifts up the fallen, and the Baptist type makes mountains out of molehills.
I like that joke, yeah.
Oh, that's too bad.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. It's going down to Richard.
Good
Morning, guys.
Good morning.
I just got a simple question for all of us to talk about. The Native Indians.
Sure.
They're more to spiritual religion of Mother Earth, right?
Generally, yeah.
In general, what is your opinion on what their beliefs are in? Just simple and short.
My own personal belief, and I'd much rather them doing that. They're more in tune with nature and everything else, and so that they're going to take care of the earth. They're not out there killing other people because they feel that their way is right, and that's what we got right now in the world. We got the Christians, the Jews, the Muslims, everybody. They're all killing each other, trying to get their point across on how they think we should act and go to heaven and everything else. So any religion that is non-violent and is not in your face, I have no problem with whatsoever.
Oh, that's sweet to hear, guys. I appreciate that. You guys have a good day, all right?
All right, you take care. I made his day.
Well, that's true. They realize they're living out of the earth and they have to put back into the earth what they get.
Exactly. The one I think it was a bumper sticker I saw is we don't inherit from the earth from our parents. We borrow it from our children. And that's a paraphrase of what of an Indian saying. And any religion that is out there that's doing that, that's in tune with nature and everything else, I'd much rather see them doing that than out there begging money on the street corner there, which is legal here in Austin. It just drives me nuts. Just because you're from a church or you have the church on your can, you can sit there with a can right there on the corner and beg money and be perfectly legal here. Some other current things that have happened here, Breckenridge is here in the news here. That just blows me away that the Catholic Church has so much money and everything else that they can come into Austin and tell Austin how they're going to determine what medical procedures are going to be carried out at they're supposedly there to help the indigent and the
Well, they were given the contract from the city of Austin with the understanding that they would provide the resources,
everything
that Breckenridge was offering before Seton came along.
Exactly.
And now they're trying to say, we can't do this, we can't do this. Well, if they want the contract, they better do it. They want the money and to dictate what they're going to do.
And well, from what I understand, didn't they give some money back?
Well,
in the article I read this week, it's like 80 grand or something. And
just trying to establish a Catholic practice.
And dictate the Catholic point of view to the whole, the city of Austin, and the two should not, it's a definite case of separation of church and state there, and if Austin is paying them, to be there and everything else, the religious point of view should not be considered whatsoever. Any other points here you'd like to?
Well, yeah, we have a lecture coming up.
T-shirt. Oh, you want to show it?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the lecture while I'm disrobing here a little bit.
Okay.
I brought a T-shirt in, and then this is.
But thanks for reminding me. Yeah, Moss Bishop.
Worship, isn't it?
Worship.
Worship. Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead. Speak.
It's going to be our next lecture, and he actually the title will be Morals and Ethics from the Bible there, and if you think it's any good, your brain on religion. Yes.
Stupid hair's in the way.
That is a good T-shirt.
That's designed and printed up by Spike Tyson, a good friend of mine. Copyright Spike.
He has his own name, yes. He copyrighted it there, I guess.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, anyway, that's our lecture coming up, right? Mosh?
Yes, and he will be on the show, on our TV show, 2 weeks from today, as a matter of fact, is when our next series, our next lecture, right? And,
Mosh.
That's at North Cross Mall. That's 11 a.m. It's the first Sunday in September.
It's going to be the 6th, isn't it?
September 6th. Thanks for reminding me of the exact date. And that's free and open to the public. You don't have to be part of the group to come in. And like I say, the gentleman will be on. Oh, well, what are we doing here?
That's one of our camera guys there, in case you're wondering. We also have.
Go right.
Well, we have a website. First of all, I don't think that's been up there.
Yeah, it was, but go ahead.
www.atheist-community.org. We're also having a blood drive October 17 at the North Lamar Central Texas Regional Blood Center. We're going to all go down there and give blood. It's a real cool thing for people to do. And atheists are good citizens. It doesn't even hurt. And they give you free cookies and punch afterwards. Come on.
Yes.
All true men can't turn down a free meal, okay?
We ought to do one more thing here, you know?
Sure, go right ahead. We got a couple minutes.
I wandered into a movie last week with one of my children, and we had heard a lot about it, but nobody actually gave much about the storyline. It's one of our, I think still playing down at the Adobe, Hands on a HardBody.
It's documentary.
Yes, documentary, and
right.
What they never tell you is how it comes out, and there's a good reason why nobody tells you what the conclusion is, but I will go just, I hope you'll see it, so I don't want to give it away, but I will say that if you're an atheist, you will love the ending on that movie.
Interesting. You got my curiosity up now. So we do have one more caller here. Charles?
Yeah.
Good morning.
Hey, I wanted to call you guys and ask y'all about a particular experience in atheism. If I understand correctly, Madalyn O'Hare's been missing for quite a while. I was wondering if you guys knew where she was at.
Okay. That is actually American Atheist. We're Atheist Community of Austin. She has nothing to do with this group, and we have no more news than what's in the. It's been in the newspaper, and there's there's actually a couple new books out on the market. So it's anybody's answer. We have no answer.
Oh, okay. So she didn't take any of y'all's money when she left.
No. We have nothing to do with her.
Well, that's fortunate. Not so fortunate for the other atheists around her.
Yeah,
They're doing much better now.
Yes. Any other questions?
No.
All right. You have a good day. So
Well,
one thing that happened to me this week, it might bring it out. I get this all the time, especially callers coming here asking to pray for me. And the more I think about that, and I just want to let you Christians know, point out how vain that really is. That you think that your voice here, or that will actually go out there and actually create some change here on this earth, that this little speck that's coming through, this universe, and you're going to get up there and you are so connected with your God that you have an inside track into Him, that you are. It just blows me away that you're that vain that you actually think something good is actually going to come from that. So one of the answers it came up with since then, and I've thought about it since then, is if they ask me again, it's like, yeah, and you can put my name on the top of the list to your letter to Santa too. It's all the same thing. It just blows me away. But if you stop and think how vain that really is, that you have so much control over the earth and everything else, that I'm going to sit here and pray for you to have a good day, that it's going to come true just because I said so.
Well, in effect, it's an insult.
And what? How do you consider it an insult? Let these people know.
They know you're an atheist, and they're insulting you. Personally, when people say that, I wish they'd, if they don't have anything better to do, go ahead and pray.
Okay.
It's a waste of time.
The coyote howling at the moon, it has the same effect.
Yeah, it's just what you said. Yeah.
And, so we got like a half minute left here, a minute and a half, or what I meant to say. We just want to let everybody in Austin know we love you. We love all the Christians, everyone out there. Music in 30 seconds, okay? We love that. We love it. Here we go.
That wasn't 30 seconds. Thanks.
I bet you they won't play this song on the radio. I bet you they won't play this new song. It's not that it's or controversial, just that the words are awfully strong.
Got the music on.
Hey, we don't have censorship here.
Yes. We're definitely going to be at the blood drive, so if there's anybody out there that needs it, feel free to call us. We'd love to help any of the atheists out there. If any Christians out there, I guess, want some atheist blood, and if they're...
We're going to the bagel shop after this. That's 5th and Lavaca.
Help any way we
Let's get a shot of our crew
help
real
any
quick.
way we can.
Yes.
Say hello.
She's in the dark over there.
Thank you, Austin.
Counting down here.
Look twice.
Got
Bicyclists
Keith
are
on the
everywhere.
air, yes. That's our
Floor manager here.